Hello, welcome back to my channel. I thought today we would do a tag. This is Noelle Gallagher's recent tag. It starts with show me a book that. Noelle's tag was awesome. I will link it below, and I thought it would be fun to join in. The filming setup today is in the front in a traditional ranch house. This is the formal living room, but we've turned it into a reading room, cabinet of curiosities. On the top shelf you've got all of our animal skeletons. Let's insert some B-roll here. It is the room with several of my paintings and drawings, several old clocks. Up on the shelf, some of my pottery, another painting over there. Big front window where the deer usually show their cute little snouts. Collection of bones, and lots and lots and lots and lots of books. They are too deep down here at the bottom. Most of these are books from my undergraduate English degree, books from my postgraduate art studies, and that sort of thing. So there's your tour. That couch is our ugly couch. Very comfortable though for my aging dog to sit out here and watch the wildlife in front of the window. This is where he likes to hang out during the day. First up, show me a book that has pictures. Ooh, this is one of my favorite picture books. This is from a figurative artist, Prud'hon, and his drawings are absolutely gorgeous. Show you just a few. He was sort of known for these beautiful nude studies on bluish paper that he would build up with light. There's a little arm study that's quite gorgeous. Okay, anyway, clearly I am surrounded by books with pictures. A book that is green. This one is fun, and this one would absolutely fit in the prior category as well. And this is a side of Virginia Woolf that I'm guessing, even if you're familiar with Virginia Woolf, you have no idea about. This is a little parody play that she wrote. It's called Freshwater. It kind of has this light green cover. It's a comedy. And the drawings of this edition are by Edward Gorey, who's one of my favorite all-time illustrators. Virginia Woolf's great aunt is the Victorian photographer Julia Margaret Cameron, and I'll insert some of her portraits because they are absolutely stunning. They have a gorgeous, almost pre-Raphaelite air to them. Of course, Virginia Woolf ran with the Bloomsbury crowd, and they have all kinds of urban legends surrounding their antics. She really does lampoon the hoity-toity artist and their relationship with their muses. So if you've never read this, highly recommend it. It is a hoot. It is hilarious. A book that has made you cry quite recently. I finished this past week, and so beautifully told. The story takes place in a graveyard, and little Willie Lincolns goes through a process where he's basically joined this no man's land between life and the afterlife, where he is hanging around waiting for his father to come and visit him. It's also incredibly funny. It has a very dark humor running throughout with these characters who are also in this transitory space, but it will make you laugh. It will make you cry. A book that's romantic and fluffy. Okay, for this, I think I'm going to go back to the most recent romances that I've read. Crazy Rich Asians, I read the whole trilogy. Those are absolutely light, fluffy beach reads and a whole lot of fun to read. The book that my mom bought me, indirectly I think we can credit her with all of those art books because of course my parents moved our family to Rome, Italy when I was in high school, so I think I can credit both of my parents for all of my love of art and culinary arts. And they're just too many to mention. But since we're talking about Rome, art in Rome. Thanks, Mom. Books that Fergus would love if he could read. Okay, Fergus is my dog, and I think I have to go with a book that I have just taken to my classroom because I'm currently teaching it. The Odyssey because of Argos, the dog who waits for his owner Odysseus through the Trojan War and through all of Odysseus's journeys. And the other reason I would pick the Odyssey, Fergus is absolutely my husband's dog. He loves us both. We're a tight pack, but he just adores my husband. Okay, next up, books you're dying to reread. I think I would have to say Master and Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov. I do read this every 2 or 3 years because it's such a rich tapestry. I'll read from the back. An audacious revision of the stories of Faust and Pontius Pilate, The Master and Margarita is recognized as one of the essential classics of modern Russian literature. The thing that makes this absolutely my soul book is, again, the characterization of the artist and the muse, specifically the writer who's working on the manuscript and his muse, who has very interesting supernatural powers. So, love it. It's a wild ride. It is hilarious. Yes, it has a gun-toting cat by the name of Behemoth. The first scene, the devil visits a park in Moscow where 2 pedantic writers are having a conversation on the bench. Hilarious. I get something different out of this book every time I dip into it. Books that made you fall out of love with reading for a while. Oh, I took an early British novel class. Pamela, I think I would have to say Pamela. Awful epistolary novel. I really did not enjoy that book. Book that reminds me of my significant other, I think I would have to say John Parker's Once a Runner, and that's one of my husband's favorite books, and it's one that I also read and I really loved it. Follows a character who's on the organ track team back in the days of Bill Bowerman and Prefontaine, and it sort of dips into the culture of that generation of athletes and runners, and it's just an extraordinarily well-written book as well. Book that scared the shit out of me, Amityville Horror. I read that as a youngster. It must have been 6th grade or so when I read that book. The flies and the glowing eyes of the pigs just really got under my skin and gave me nightmares for many, many years. Book that makes me remember my childhood. Oh, I must have gotten rid of them. I had 3 of them for the longest time over there on that shelf. Are You My Mother? And just in a nutshell, that kind of sums up who I am and my level of inquiry. But I love it. I love that book. Illustrations are great in all of those books. Read in one day, I think it would have to be probably something by Neil Gaiman, The Graveyard Book. I have a lot of ghosts in my books and graveyards. Brilliant book about a child named Nobody who survives the murder of his entire family by crawling out of his crib and down the stairs of his row house, out the front door. And the villains in that book are just brilliantly, brilliantly drawn by Gaiman. It has villains, it has vampires, it has ghosts, it has witches, it has interesting sayings on gravestones, and it's just delightful. Highly recommend The Graveyard Book, even for adults. Super, super inventive. Made you feel like you were losing your mind. I think that would have to be something along the lines of Djuna Barnes' Nightwood. It's a modernist novel that I studied in one of my classes as an undergrad. The shape-shifting of the prose, the shape-shifting of the stream of consciousness, it's a dark psychological read that will take you some interesting places if you can get through it. Oh, I have to run and get this one. Next up is a novel that had a plot twist that you did not see coming, and I think I would have to say Donna Tartt's A Secret History. And if you look at this cover, if you can see, the cover image looks like it's a sculptural head. Could be a pan, but that's not super clear from the image. And it's sort of merged with a nude male human torso here. That gives you an excellent hint as to the plot. I can't talk about this novel without giving you a spoiler, but let's say the last 50 pages gave me whiplash. There is a very good Audible version of the book. I would highly recommend listening to this on the Audible version. And once you start to feel it drag, crank it up to at least 1.5 speed, just so you can get through the second half of the book and arrive at that plot twist. Not my favorite read. In the end, I sense it's just a little bit too autobiographical. I know the author went to Bennington, and there was a wild crowd at Bennington at the time of authors and whatnot. And I just, by about halfway through, it's hard to read without feeling like you're getting alcohol poisoning. There is just non-stop party, non-stop drinking in this book. I did not enjoy this as a process as much as I enjoyed the Goldfin. Next up, a book that I didn't expect to love as much as I did, Cranford, Elizabeth Gaskell. This is such a subtle, I think I love Elizabeth Gaskell. So Elizabeth Gaskell is also the author of North and South, so she was writing around the American Civil War. She's English. I'll just read you the blurb from the back. A vivid and affectionate portrait of a provincial town in early Victorian England, Elizabeth Gaskell's Cranford describes a community dominated by its independent and refined women, undaunted by poverty, but dismayed by changes brought by the railway and by new commercial practices. The ladies of Cranford respond to the disruption with both suspicion and courage. Miss Maddie and her sister Deborah uphold standards and survive personal tragedy and everyday dramas. Innovation may bring loss, but it also brings growth and welcome freedoms. I feel like I want to move this back into my to read again in 2021 pile. Just did not expect to be so in love with this novel, and I should read it again. Hey Siri, open Audible. Cranford also has a wonderful audiobook read by Prunella Scales that I would highly, highly recommend. Next up is Difficult, a book that made me angry. Oh, I have a good one for the book that made me angry. Hans Fallada, Every Man Dies Alone. Based on a true story, this sweeping saga tells the tale of a working class couple in Berlin who decide to take a stand against the Nazis. More than an edge-of-your-seat thriller, more than a moving romance, even more than literature of the highest order, it's a deeply moving story of two people who stand up for what's right and for each other. Hans Fallada wrote Every Man Dies Alone in a feverish 24 days soon after the end of World War II and his release from a Nazi insane asylum. He did not live to see its publication. Fantastic resistance tale set during World War II in Berlin. And it follows a couple different characters and their method of resistance. I think I can talk about this without any spoilers. Their method of resistance is they start leaving anti-Nazi messages on little slips of paper in stairwells and tucked under napkins throughout their daily lives as they move through the city. And it is just beautifully written, and by the by, I did not realize that Nazis would execute people with the guillotine. So this book made me really, anything about World War II and the atrocities makes me extremely angry because we haven't seemed to learn our lessons about alterity and othering whole groups of people based on difference, and we're seeing it play out in just devastating ways all over the world. We should know better by now. Book that I read multiple times, the Harry Potter series. The Harry Potter I could read over and over and over again for life and see all the films over and over and over again for life. And I think the only exception for me is book 5 had a little bit too much adolescent whining and adolescent conflict for me to really elevate it in status to the rest of the novels in this series. But that's utterly subjective. Oh, a hare just ran across our front driveway. Peter Rabbit. Favorite of the month so far. Ooh, that's hard. I read some really good books this month. Lincoln in the Bardo so far, and I only say that my hesitancy came from the fact that I'm slowly reading On Earth Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. This one's just too intense for me to say it's my favorite of the month. Also, I won't get through it. I don't believe I'll get through it in April, even though it's a library book and I really should. It's gorgeous and heartbreaking in small bites and beautifully, beautifully written. Took me the longest to read. I think I'm gonna have to go back to Secret History. I started this 3 years ago, got about halfway through, abandoned it, and just finished it last month because I was so committed, and I had an Audible version as well, and I just want to see if I could get back into the story, and I did. I'm glad I did. I don't like walking away from a book by an author of this caliber. Book that feels the same as a chocolate chip cookie. I'm gonna go back to Neil Gaiman again. His sense of whimsy and darkness really speaks to me. Neverwhere. Two rabbits just chase each other across the front lawn. Must be spring mating season. Anyway, back to Neil Gaiman, Neverwhere. Richard Mayhew is one of the most charming chocolate chip cookie characters I will probably ever read. He stumbles into doors to another world. His secondary world is underneath London, and it's sort of connected to the tube station. For this is the home of Dora, the mysterious girl whom Richard rescued in the London above. A personage of great power and nobility in this murky candlelit realm, she is on a mission to discover the cause of her family's slaughter, and in doing so preserve this strange world kingdom from the malevolence that means to destroy it. Gorgeous, gorgeous chocolate chip cookie. I highly recommend it. I'm so sad that's the end of the tag. This was fun to do. I hope you enjoyed my selections. If you want to play along in the comments below or on your own channel, give me a shout out. I would love to visit your ideas. And I hope you're able to spend a little bit of time today dipping into a book that you love. Ciao.